Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is VC Pramod and with me is Nishit Kumar bringing glimpses of major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. As the world fights the COVID-19 pandemic, we begin the program with a message of precaution to stay safe and protected by following these three simple steps. Wear a face mask. Maintain social distancing. Focus on hand and face hygiene. The headlines. Nepal and Bangladesh receive Made in India COVID-19 vaccines. President Joe Biden announces United States to return Paris Agreement to fight climate change. China sanctions 28 senior U.S. officials, including former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Mongolia's Prime Minister resigns after COVID-19 protests. At least 23 people killed in twin suicide bomb attack in Baghdad. And in badminton, India's Sameer Verma advances to men's singles quarterfinals of the Thailand Open. True to the spirit of being acknowledged as the pharmacy of the world, India's role as the top vaccine manufacturer has come to the fore once again. Under the Vaccine Maitri initiative, India continues to provide COVID-19 vaccines to neighboring countries. Adopting a cooperative approach to fight the corona pandemic, India today handed over 2 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine to Bangladesh. The vaccine was handed over in Dhaka by the High Commissioner of India, Vikram Doraiswamy, to the Bangladesh Foreign Minister Dr. A.K. Abdul Momen and Health Minister Zahid Malik. More from our special correspondent in Dhaka.
The gift of 2 million doses of corona vaccine by India to Bangladesh symbolizes the deep and historic relations between the two countries. Handing over the vaccine gift, High Commissioner Vikram Doraiswamy said that the gift was part of the country's neighborhood first policy, under which India accords high priority to its relationship with Bangladesh. He said that the gift of 20 lakh doses of COVID Shield is in fact the biggest such dispatched by India to any of the neighboring countries. The High Commissioner said that in line with the discussions held during the virtual summit between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, India has delivered the vaccines within a week of the vaccines rollout in India.
This tranche of 2 million vaccines produced by the Serum Institute of India is part of our commitment as part of Neighbourhood First, as part of our commitment at the highest level between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Her Excellency Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to ensure that as we move forward in fighting coronavirus in each of our countries, we will do so together. Because together, India and Bangladesh, together in our neighborhood, we will be able to fight the disease most effectively when we cooperate.
He added that the arrival of the vaccines is only the latest of many steps already taken by the two countries to combat COVID-19 together. It takes forward the initiative taken by Prime Minister Modi in March when he convened a meeting of SAARC leaders through video conferencing to have a cooperative approach to fight the pandemic. Following the meeting, the SAARC COVID-19 Emergency Fund was set up. Foreign Minister of Bangladesh, Dr. A.K. Abdul Momen, thanked the government and people of India for the vaccines. He said India stood by Bangladesh during the Liberation War and has again come with the gift of vaccines for the country. Rajesh Jha for AIR News, Dhaka.
Meanwhile, India today sent 1 million doses of COVID vaccine to Nepal as gift under the Vaccine Maitri initiative. Nepal Health Minister Hridayesh Tripathi said the vaccine gifted by India will be given to health workers and other frontline personnel within a week to 10 days. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar confirmed on Twitter that Nepal received Indian vaccines. The minister said in another tweet, along with a photograph of Air India flight that carried the consignments to Dhaka, touchdown in Dhaka. Vaccine Maitri reaffirms the highest priority accorded by India to relations with Bangladesh. Nepali Prime Minister K.P. Sharma Oli thanked Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi as well as the government and people of India for the generous grant of 1 million doses of COVID vaccine to Nepal. Yesterday, India had sent 150,000 doses of Covishield vaccines to Bhutan and 100,000 doses to the Maldives. In a major announcement, Indian government said on Tuesday that it will send COVID-19 vaccines to Bhutan, Maldives, Bangladesh, Nepal, Myanmar and Seychelles from Wednesday, and supplies to Sri Lanka, Afghanistan and Mauritius will commence after confirmation of necessary regulatory clearances. India is one of the largest Drug makers and an increasing number of countries have already approached it for procuring the coronavirus vaccines. The MEA said it will be ensured that domestic manufacturers will have adequate stocks to meet domestic requirements while supplying abroad. India had earlier supplied hydroxychloroquine, remdesivir and paracetamol tablets as well as diagnostic kits, ventilators, masks, gloves and other medical supplies to a large number of countries to help them deal with the pandemic. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that India remains committed to assist the people of Nepal in fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. He was replying to Nepal Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli on Twitter, who thanked Mr. Modi and people of India for 1 million doses of vaccines. Mr. Modi said the vaccines being made in India will also contribute to the global efforts to contain the pandemic. India has always accorded a high priority to its relations with Bhutan. Bhutan has been and remains India's trusted friend and neighbour. Prime Minister Modi very early in his second term visited the Himalayan neighbour in line with India's continued emphasis on its neighbourhood first policy. On Wednesday, just days after India launched the world's largest vaccination drive against COVID-19, India sent its first consignment of COVID-19 vaccines to Bhutan. With this, Bhutan became the first country outside India to receive the vaccines indigenously produced in India. Today, we are in conversation with Ambassador of India to Bhutan, Ms. Ruchira Kamboj, in an exclusive interview to All India Radio. Ambassador, what are your reactions to the first tranche of COVID-19 vaccines that were delivered to Bhutan on Wednesday?
Yesterday was a beautiful day for the India-Bhutan friendship. You would recall that on January 16, Prime Minister Modi had said that India's production capacity, its ability to manufacture vaccines, will serve the interests of the whole of humanity. This generosity for regional solidarity made it possible for Bhutan to be yesterday the first country to receive vaccines. What we saw yesterday, therefore, was India's ancient spiritual ethos of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam in action. Importantly, India has made good on its promise of standing shoulder to shoulder with Bhutan and will continue to do so in the coming months. The leadership and public of Bhutan has been deeply touched by India's gesture. The Prime Minister of Bhutan, Dr. Lote Tshering, has called this a display of altruism at its best. The Prime Minister of Bhutan has also made an important point, and I quote, "It is of unimaginable value when precious commodities are shared even before meeting your own needs, as opposed to giving out only after you have enough," calling this altruism at its best. Thank you, Prime Minister Lote, for your kind and gracious words, which are deeply appreciated. So truly, the dispatch of the vaccine was a testimony to India's commitment of neighbourhood first and its leadership in the global fight against the COVID-19 pandemic.
Could you shed some light on how Bhutan is tackling this pandemic and also on how it plans on proceeding with the vaccination drive?
Bhutan's fight against COVID-19 serves as a model of due diligence for the world. His Majesty, the King of Bhutan, has led from the front, an exemplar of compassionate leadership in these troubled times. The Prime Minister, the Foreign Minister and the Health Minister of Bhutan are all doctors, as you might know, and therefore science and reason have prevailed in policy making. And the results are there for all of us to see. Only 850 positive cases since the outbreak of the pandemic, of which 631 are recovered and cured, with only 218 active cases. And as far as the vaccination drive goes, Bhutan will proceed per their priorities. Vaccines will be distributed using existing infrastructure and distribution mechanisms. Given the urgency to achieve 100% coverage of inoculations, within weeks, helicopter services will be used to deliver the vaccine to strategic regional locations from where the refrigerated vans will be used to distribute the vaccine to immunization posts and hospitals. The plan appears quite elaborate and detailed, and we are certain that the COVID-19 mass vaccination drive will be yet another Bhutanese success story. I will add that Bhutan has had precious experience in the past in mass immunization thanks to their campaigns against rubella and measles, and we are certain that in this particular case too, they will come out with flying colors.
India's partnership with Bhutan has been an enduring one, and India has always been the proverbial friend in need to its Himalayan neighbour. Can you share with our listeners in what other ways is India supporting Bhutan during this grave crisis induced by the COVID pandemic and Bhutan's efforts to overcome this difficult challenge?
Since the outbreak of the pandemic, India has been Bhutan's trusted partner and dependable friend. As just one example only in the commercial space, we have kept networks and borders open to ensure seamless and uninterrupted supply of essential commodities to Bhutan. We have opened 5 new trade routes to facilitate two-way trade as also trade to third countries. We have facilitated the export of Bhutanese agri-products both to India and to third countries, which has kept the wheels moving at this end. This is just one example of the exceptional measures that have been taken, keeping in mind our time-tested relationship. It has been our honor to stand by Bhutan. Equally, Bhutan at this end has appreciated India's vital collaboration during the pandemic, and we thank them for that. Over and above and beyond, the Government of India has delivered 10 consignments of essential medical supplies to Bhutan during the course of the pandemic. For the past 2 days, in fact, the Government of India has been undertaking a 2-day training program for Bhutanese healthcare professionals on the operational aspects of a safe and effective vaccine rollout now that the vaccine is in Bhutan. I could say, of course, much more, since however that the time is limited, suffice to say that we have and will always stand shoulder to shoulder with Bhutan in coming times. India will be a reliable partner and dependable friend going forward.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Ma'am, for taking time out to help our listeners learn more about this most cherished of friendships between India and Bhutan. You were listening to Ms. Ruchira Kamboj, India's ambassador to Bhutan, in conversation with All India Radio.
India and Maldives share ethnic, linguistic, cultural, religious and commercial links steeped in antiquity and enjoy close, cordial and multidimensional relations. The COVID pandemic has brought testing times to the country just as it been for the rest of the world. However, rays of hope in the form of COVID vaccines landed on a beautiful country of Maldives as India shipped its first consignment of COVID vaccines on Wednesday. In conversation with us is High Commissioner of India to the Maldives, speaking exclusively with All India Radio from Male. High Commissioner, can we have your reactions on yesterday's development of the Made in India COVID-19 vaccines reaching the Maldives?
It was indeed a historic day for Maldives, as Maldives was the first country to receive Indian vaccine, and that also so early in January. Within 96 hours of the rollout of vaccine in India. They were not really expecting it, but it happened with the support of the Indian government. This was clearly an example of India's generosity and also reflects the depth of our bilateral relations. There is no doubt that Maldives occupies a very, very special place in the foreign policy of India. The India First foreign policy of Maldives is fully reciprocated by the Neighbourhood First policy of India, both in letter and spirit.
Could you enlighten our listeners on how Maldives is coping with the COVID challenge?
I must say that Maldives has done a wonderful job of dealing with the pandemic. They are fully prepared to roll it out, and with the help of Government of India, there have been a lot of capacity building sessions. For instance, on January 19th and 20th, there were long sessions between the health authorities in Maldives and the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare on our side, where the practical aspects of the rollout were discussed between experts so that when the rollout happens in Maldives, it is smooth.
How has India supported the Maldives in ending the scourge of the COVID-19 pandemic?
COVID indeed has been a very dark part of Maldives' history, has had a huge impact not only at the humanitarian level but also at the level of denting their economy. Right from the start of COVID pandemic, India has worked very closely with Maldives in dealing with the pandemic. Among all neighbors, Maldives was the first and one of the largest beneficiaries of our COVID-related assistance. This includes assistance in evacuating Maldivian nationals from Wuhan, supply of essential medicines and food items, and also deployment of a 14-member rapid response team consisting of doctors and paramedics. Very early on last year, just when the pandemic started in March. When international borders were closed due to the pandemic in April 2020, Operation Sanjeevani was launched to meet the medicine requirement of Maldives. Under this operation, a special Indian Air Force plane airlifted 6.2 tons of essential medicines and other medical supplies from India to the Maldives. Also, as a part of Mission Sagar, Male was the first port of call for Indian Navy ship Kesari, which delivered about 600 tons of food items to Maldives in May last year, thus ensuring food security.
Okay, how is Maldives emerging from this pandemic and reopening to the rest of the world, given that the country's economy is so dependent on tourism?
Maldives has done phenomenally well in this area. Maldives was among the first to open borders on 15 July last year. Since then, there has been a rapid increase in inflow of tourists from various parts of the world. And as you know, so many parts of the world are also closed, so that is inhibiting the flow of tourists into Maldives. But all the same, India has taken the lead, I must say, and I'm very happy to share that for 2020, India was the largest source of tourists for this country, followed by other countries like Russia. The tourism sector is fully prepared to receive tourists with full COVID protocols. Their staff is fully trained, and we are very happy to say that once tourism is back on track, so is their economy, because their economy is very heavily dependent on tourism.
Can you tell us what quantity of vaccines have been sought by the Maldives government, and when are they expected to be available in the Maldives?
In the initial lot, Government of India has provided as a gift from the Government and People of India to the Government and People of the Maldives 100,000 doses of Covishield vaccine, which is based on research by AstraZeneca and produced by Serum Institute. As far as next lots are concerned, we have already received a request of 300,000 doses of vaccine at Government of India rates, followed by another 300,000 doses at commercial rates. As far as timing is concerned, this is something which we will look at very shortly.
High Commissioner, how would you look at the prospects of further deepening of ties between the two countries?
India is known as the pharmacy of the world, so first and foremost we have them out in supplying vaccines. But I would say that there is already a very broad agenda set up between our two leaders in November, December 2018. Under this, we have about $2 billion of economic package. We have a vast array of capacity building courses. We are working on areas such as customs, civil services, agriculture, education, defense, infrastructure. There's a whole list of these areas. So our effort is that we continue to deepen ties in all these areas. We continue to work in spite of the, I would say, bit of a slowdown due to COVID pandemic. But in spite of the pandemic, we never really stopped any capacity building or any infrastructure building here. We switched to online mode wherever possible, but things have been moving very consistently and quite fast.
Okay, would you like to elaborate on the epithet of pharmacy of the world that India has been associated with?
India is known as the pharmacy of the world and today manufactures more than 60% of all vaccines sold across the globe. The vaccine provided by India to Maldives, for instance, is manufactured by the Serum Institute of India, and I must share that Serum Institute is the largest vaccine manufacturer in the world. About 65% of children in 170 countries in the world receive at least one vaccine manufactured by the Serum Institute. Prime Minister Modi, in his speech to UN General Assembly in September last year, said that India's vaccine production and delivery capacity will be used to help all of humanity in fighting this crisis. India will also help all countries in enhancing their cold chain and storage capacities for delivery of the vaccines. Today, Prime Minister Modi and India have proved that they will be the first country to help out other countries in their neighborhood in this very dark hour of COVID pandemic and extend a helping hand in coming back to normal.
Thank you so much for being with us and sharing your thoughts with our listeners. That was India's High Commissioner to the Maldives, Mr. Sanjay Sudhir, speaking exclusively with All India Radio.
A consignment containing 1.5 million doses of Covishield vaccines from India will reach Yangon tomorrow. Sources said Myanmar is one of the first countries to receive Indian government's gift of the Make in India Covishield vaccines manufactured by the Serum Institute of India. Myanmar is an important land and maritime neighbor of India, with which India shares close historical, civilizational, cultural, religious, linguistic and ethnic ties. Myanmar is a vital component of India's Neighbourhood First and Act East policies. On 30th April last year, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had a telephone conversation with Aung San Suu Kyi, State Councillor of Myanmar. During the conversation, the Prime Minister conveyed India's readiness to provide all possible support to Myanmar for mitigating the health and economic impact of COVID-19. President Joe Biden has announced America's return to the International Paris Agreement to fight climate change. He signed an executive order at the White House just hours after being sworn in to reverse the previous administration's withdrawal from the 2015 Accord. Biden has promised to put the United States on a track to net zero emissions by 2050. Biden's orders also required government agencies to consider revising vehicle fuel efficiency standards and methane emission curbs. Climate change leaders and campaigners worldwide welcome U.S. President Joe Biden's move to rejoin the 2015 Paris Agreement. They also said that Washington must also cut emissions and use its influence to encourage other countries to do the same. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has welcomed President Biden's steps to re-enter the Paris Agreement. UN chief said that he looks forward to an era of new leadership towards accelerating climate action, with the U.S. back inside the landmark Paris Agreement. This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates around the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts.
Three steps to stay protected and stay safe from COVID-19. Wear face mask, 2 gaz ki duri to maintain social distancing, maintain hand and face hygiene.
Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi is to interact with beneficiaries and vaccinators of COVID-19 vaccination drive in Varanasi tomorrow. The participants will share their first-hand experience of vaccination with the PM.
China announced sanctions on 28 former Trump administration officials moments after they left office yesterday, including former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. In a statement released minutes after President Joe Biden was inaugurated, Beijing slapped travel bans and business restrictions on Secretary Pompeo, National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien, and UN Ambassador Kelly Croft, among others. The sanctioned individuals and their immediate family members are prohibited from entering the mainland, Hong Kong and Macau of China. They and companies and institutions associated with them are also restricted from doing business with China. The sanctions underscore Beijing's antipathy towards the U.S. administration it regarded as hostile. China's foreign ministry said in a statement that over the past few years, some anti-China politicians in the United States, out of their own political interests and prejudice and hatred against China, planned, promoted and executed a series of crazy moves. The Trump administration had steadily ramped up pressure on China since last year, but increasingly so over the past several months. During its last weeks in office, the administration had hit numerous officials with sanctions for their actions on Tibet, Taiwan, Hong Kong and the South China Sea.
Mongolia's Prime Minister Khurulsuk Ukhna has submitted resignation to Parliament after protests in the capital Ulaanbaatar over the government's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. In his resignation statement, Khurulsuk said that he should assume the responsibility upon himself and accept the demand of the public. His resignation needs to be approved by the Parliament. The state news agency Monsame has reported that the protests erupted on Wednesday over an alleged inhumane treatment of a COVID-19 patient and her newborn baby at a specialist quarantine facility run by Mongolia's National Center of Communicable Diseases. Mongolia had earned praise from the World Health Organization in the early stages of the COVID-19 pandemic for its handling of the health crisis, but the country has recently been battling a new outbreak of COVID-19. A twin suicide bombing killed at least 23 people and wounded more than 50 in a Baghdad market on Thursday. There was no immediate claim of responsibility. Suicide bombings have been rare in the Iraqi capital since the defeat of the Islamic State militant group in 2017. The last took place in January 2018. The Iraqi military said 2 attackers wearing explosive vests blew themselves up among shoppers at a crowded market in Tahran Square in central Baghdad and that several people had been killed. Baghdad has witnessed almost no such attacks since Iraqi forces and a US-backed coalition drove Islamic State from territory it controlled in Iraq in 2017. The last deadly suicide blast in the Iraqi capital, also at Tahran Square, killed at least 27 people in January 2018. Iraqi authorities did not immediately say who they believed was behind the bombing, but called it a terrorist incident. Today was the 6th day of International Film Festival of India, IFFI, which is going on at Panaji. Though on a hybrid mode, that is physical and virtual, the festival has evoked very good response. More from our Panaji correspondent.
Director Prithviraj Dasgupta, while speaking about his film Green Blackberries, said that it depicts the story of children in the remote villages in northeastern India. The difficulties children face to acquire education prompted me to carry forward this struggle in a film medium, he added. His film is included in the non-feature category of Indian Panorama. Gupta said that it was a long journey of 2.5 years to conceptualize the idea of the film. In the meanwhile, director Martina Sakova of Summer Rebels, an IFFI World Panorama film, said that her film promotes friendship, trust and belongingness. With Tushar Jadhav, Mukesh Thadi for AIR News from Panaji.
India has been among the first countries to establish diplomatic ties with the Federal Republic of Germany after the Second World War. Bilateral relations between the two countries are founded on common democratic principles marked by a high degree of trust and mutual respect. In an exclusive interview with AIR News, Walter J. Linder, the German ambassador to India, shared his insights on India-Germany relations. He expressed strong support for India in its bid for a permanent seat in a reformed UN Security Council. Mr. Linder said the membership of the permanent members in the UN Security Council reflects the situation in 1948. The reputation and credibility of the United Nations is endangered if we don't reform it rapidly, he added.
United Nations, it was formed in 1948, just right after the Second World War. So the reality it reflects, the membership of the permanent members reflect the situation in 1948. Those were the victorious powers at the time. But still, in the Security Council, there is no African country, there is no Latin American country, there is no India. So it's totally unacceptable. A country with 1.4 billion people not being in the Security Council, this is not possible. This is incredible. The composition, the membership of the Security Council is restricted to 5 permanent members. We thought the reputation of the United Nations, the credibility of the United Nations, endangered if we don't reform it rapidly.
The complete interview can be listened to at the World News program tomorrow on FM Gold channel and additional frequencies from 10:30 p.m. India has expressed shock at the unfortunate loss of lives of 3 Indian fishermen and 1 Sri Lankan national following a collision between their vessel and a Sri Lankan naval craft. The External Affairs Minister said India's strong protest in this regard to this incident was conveyed by Indian High Commissioner to the Sri Lankan Foreign Minister today. A strong démarche was also made to the Sri Lankan Acting High Commissioner in New Delhi.
Alphabet's Google and a group of French publishers have said that they had agreed a general framework over copyrights under which Google will pay publishers for content online. Google has only signed individual agreements with a few publications so far, including national dailies Le Monde and Le Figaro. Their statement said that the principles agreed between the French publishers organization Alliance de la Presse Information Generale and Google include criteria such as the daily volume of publications, monthly internet traffic, and contribution to political and general information. Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The New York Times has reported that 3 big Chinese telecom companies have filed requests asking New York Stock Exchange to reverse the decision of their delisting. UK-based The Guardian writes that UK has insisted that it will not grant European Union ambassador full diplomatic status. Russia-based Sputnik News has reported that Hungary has become the first European Union country to authorize Russia's Sputnik V vaccine. Turkey-based Daily Sabah has reported that Libyan envoys at United Nations backed talks in Egypt agreed to hold a constitutional referendum ahead of the elections. Moving on to sports and badminton, India's Sameer Verma defeated Rasmus Fenke of Denmark 21-12, 21-9 to reach the quarterfinals of the Thailand Open. The mixed doubles pairing of Satvik Sairaj Rankireddy and Ashwini Ponnappa also sailed into the quarterfinals with a 22-20, 14-21, 21-16 win over the German duo of Mark Lampers and Isabel Hetrich. A quick look at the headlines once again. Nepal and Bangladesh receive Made in India COVID-19 vaccines. President Joe Biden announces United States to return Paris Agreement to fight climate change. China sanctions 28 senior U.S. officials, including former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Mongolia's Prime Minister resigns after COVID-19 protests. At least 23 people killed in twin suicide bomb attack in Baghdad. And in badminton, India's Sameer Verma advances to the men's singles quarterfinals of the Thailand Open. India is celebrating the 151st birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Before we end, let's listen to his favorite bhajan, Vaishnava Jan, by artists from Denmark.
Vaishnava Jan tu tine kahi je peeda parai jaane re par dukhe upkar kare toye man abhiman.
And with that, we end this bulletin. See you at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.